All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I now call to order our March 18th, 2019 meeting. I ask you to join me in a moment of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together here tonight, and please be with us tonight as we discuss and debate the issues before us. Help us to remember those tonight less fortunate, those who have lost loved ones. And Father, just help us, even when we disagree, to be civil and to do so and to have a discussion that's pleasing in your name. We ask for these things in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Folks, thanks for coming out tonight. Members of Town Council, recently we just had a very informative financial summit about the state of the town's finances with a lot of good documentation by our town staff. I want this council to give our staff, especially Jennifer Hardy and the town manager, a round of applause. We have come a long way since 2011, 2012. But anyway, folks, we have a busy agenda. I do want to move up in front of the public hearings under unfinished business number 2, awarding bids on the 6th Street ditch. I want to move that up. Linda Blevins is here. Ms. Blevins, our thoughts and prayers with you on the loss of your brother. And so I told her that we would take this item up first. She has things she has to do, understandably. So we will go to the bids on the 6th Street pipe.
We opened the bids on Friday, so they're not included in your packet. There's a loose bid tabulation sheet that is located at your desk. If you remember, originally we had received an estimate from our engineers about $37,000. We then received a written estimate also from one contractor, and that was for, I believe, $36,000 and change. And so because it's over $30,000, council asked staff to go ahead and formally request sealed bids. I'm pleased to announce, because I didn't think we were going to get much activity, but I am pleased to announce that 3 firms did submit bids on it. The lowest being B.E. Howerton Construction, and I think they're in Mecklenburg County.
Is that Trey Howerton?
Yes.
Who did work at Wigglesworth at one time. They did some grading for us.
And his bid was significantly below the engineer's estimate. His bid was $23,212. And that would be for taking out the head wall, taking out the 18-inch pipe, basically taking everything that exists out and relaying a 24-inch HDPE pipe, new head wall, new boxes. And why the new boxes? Because it's cheaper to build a new one than it is to core out the old one. Okay? And the same with the head wall. It's cheaper to build a new one than core out the old one. So,
How soon can it get started?
pardon?
How soon can it get started?
I don't know the exact date. We'll have to drop a contract and, give them a notice to proceed date and all that sort of thing. How quickly can he go? I don't know. It depends on how busy he is. But that would probably be no more than a 90-day project. So start to finish, if we give him a contract on April 1st, he should be done July 1st.
I say the sooner the better. Thunderstorms gonna be popping up before long.
Nothing bad about dry weather, too.
And he can,
Stuff like that.
do you feel good about the low bid?
I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be higher.
Do you feel good about him? He's bonded and all that? And
Well, he doesn't. He is a licensed contractor, but we're not obligated to require performance bond until we hit $100,000 in a construction project.
Okay.
So my instructions to the bidders was do not include a performance bond.
Okay. Members of council, what is your pleasure? Any other questions?
Are we sure that he didn't mix up what was in the statement of work in terms of the type of
All
pipe?
3 of them are the exact same thing, which was
type of pipe.
take out what's there and replace it with 2 drop inlets, which are VDOT standard CG whatever, and then 24-inch HDPE pipe and a retaining wall. It's not much to it. It's take out and put back.
Any other
I would say
questions?
we go with him and get started immediately.
As soon as I can, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a,
that a
I'm
motion?
on his
A
schedule.
motion,
All
yes, I make that a motion.
I second.
Mr. Morgan is seconded. Mr. Jones is motion. Any other discussion? I do want to, Ms. Lovitz, I want to thank you for your patience. I know you have been a trooper through this whole situation, and I want to assure you that whether this was you living there, or John Doe, or Jane Doe, this is something the town of Blackstone's obligated to do, regardless who it is, and we want to thank you for your patience. And due to the nature of the size of the project, I will ask for a roll call vote. I believe tonight's Mr. Miller night, isn't it? Starting with Mr. Miller.
Aye. I will lose customers, friends, neighbors, obviously, but I'll retain that it's private property, and I just feel like we're moving Pandora's box, so nay.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-1.
If I may clarify one issue very quickly that
Okay.
Jennifer pointed out. When we did the ditch between Bonnie Crowder's, where she lives over on Bird Road, and Ms. Grubb, predates you guys, Eric, you remember Mayor Barber. When we put that in there, the town actually had the property owner sign an easement for long-term maintenance. Is that the intention of town? Or, and I think there was some question, is it the intention of town to have a waiver of liability at one time and then this belongs to you? That's how it was done with the Grubbs and Ms. Crowder. There's actually a recorded easement from both parties for the maintenance of that.
Could we let that marinate for a month and decide on that, let it get the
Mainly
project
because
going?
There's a sewer line that runs through there as well.
There is a sewer line that
That's why
runs through there.
The
Yeah.
easement was mainly done, was because of its sewer line.
So you're saying there's a sewer line that runs between her properties there?
He's just saying because the town is doing work and basically taking ownership of this project, there's two ways to go about this. That we are gonna agree hereby, here and forever with the easement, that we are obligated to correct it if it ever messes up again. Or do we make an offer to her to say, look, do you agree that after 5 years, it's the landowner?
Make it a temporary easement versus a permanent.
I agree with what Colonel Tom said at the last meeting. It either is the town's or it isn't. And I think the vote by the council is saying it's the town's.
It's the town.
It's the town.
Right, so I think perpetuity, we will be involved there. And hopefully Mr. Howard will do a good job. That motion is carried. Let's keep that on the agenda, future agenda item though, as far as to have a formal easement. So the next council 50 years from now won't have to go through what this council did.
Okay.
Thank you, members of council. We will now proceed with our regular agenda. We have 2 advertised public hearings. The first is a tax deferral for Magnolia Place Apartments. That's on Church Street. Mr. Norbeck?
Mr. Mayor, Magnolia's apartments that are located on Church Street have approached us because they are applying for low-income housing tax credits, for which they're eligible, for the renovations of Magnolia Place.
Long time ago. No, that was.
That was Nottaway Manor did that.
They're doing the work at Nottaway Manor right now because the same exact resolution came to you from Nottaway Manor's owners a few years ago. And what they're asking for basically is an abatement of 50% of the value of the improvements, or $2,000 annually, whichever is greater, for 3 years. Right now, if you read the resolution, the property is valued and they pay taxes about $1.275 million. The improvements will increase the value of the property exponentially, almost double it, okay? What they're asking for is up to a 50% reduction in their tax burden for the improvements, not for the original.
For 3 years
3
only.
years. Or $2,000, whichever is greater, okay? Same exact deal that we did with Nottaway Manor Apartments, and it only lasts 3 years. 50% of the improvements, the new improvements, $2,000, whichever is greater, for 3 years. Is the money a big deal for them? I can't say the money is a huge deal, but having this resolution approved by the town, it shows support and it really makes their application much stronger. And it's a rehabilitation, it's not a new project, it's a rehabilitation of the existing unit.
The taxes have not gone into effect for Nottaway Manor yet, right?
No, because they're still doing, they have to be assessed
But it
after.
will start once that's complete. Okay.
Mr. Miller, you had a question?
If about, this is my first time hearing this since I've been on council. So what are you actually saying now?
Okay. Right now, Magnolia Place pays taxes on $1.2 million of improvement.
Assessed value, that's what they're
The
assessed at.
assessed value is the proper term, not the appraised, but the assessed value. That's what the county says you gotta pay taxes on.
Okay,
They're intending to do a renovation of all those units over there,
okay,
okay? And that will double the value of the property,
okay.
based on their assessments, okay, their assumptions, okay? What they're asking for is the new part, basically the new 1.2 million, okay? That they receive a 50% abatement on the taxes on the improvements, or $2,000, whichever is greater, for 3 years.
And then after 3 years, they're gonna pay taxes on the full assessed value, which
Worst
might
case
2
scenario, they'll pay $6,000 less in taxes to the town than they would otherwise for the construction. Worst case
Total
scenario.
period of 3 years, not 6,000 per year.
No, $2,000, no greater than $2,000 for 3 years.
Our slice of the tax income pie still increases even with the 50% deferral because there's a bigger value.
Correct.
Now, the question I have is just this. What is the difference between this place here and let's say Billy Colburn owns 40 units and I decide, it's time to renovate for my tenants and look after them. Am I gonna get that same treatment as
I don't think you get the same treatment. The reason behind it is, the only reason this is being done, and this was done at Cole Harbor, it's been done in all.
Low income, the low income tax credit, that component?
Income housing tax credit. This is, I can't say a mandatory, but this is something that strengthens their application. The state of Virginia, so everybody knows, through the Virginia Housing Development Authority, has a thing called a low-income housing tax credit. It's to encourage developers to develop units that are affordable, safe, clean, Section 8, that are accessible to low-income families. Otherwise, some folks will say, it's not a good investment. But you can,
Is that, someone's either having the world's biggest cigarette or there's a fire out there. That was one fine cigarette, that's all I got to say.
Somebody vaping.
Oh, it's a vape, it's vape, okay. I'm so naive. I'm so naive.
I agree with you, Billy.
I was thinking the same thing.
I agree with you, Billy. I think that it should be on our end of the deal. If Dave McCormick wants to come up and renovate his lofts, he should have the same option, and we should be able to offer that.
you can offer it.
You could do
The
that.
town can do that.
You could set a policy where if someone has an investment and is doing a remodeling in excess of $1 million,
Yeah.
we would do the same thing for them.
I mean, I think it'd be fair across the board if you did that, but.
We can think about that in the future, but right now for this issue, the council is on record, did this 2 years ago for Nottaway Manor. This is the same project. Do y'all wish to be consistent, even though it's a different council? What's council's pleasure here?
Let the public.
Well, we need to have a public hearing. Is anyone here tonight? We'll go in public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this application? It's a boilerplate resolution. I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
I move to approve the request as presented.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? No need for a roll call vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Second public hearing, Mr. Norbeck, is on USDA rural development funds.
This is the same, but yet a little different. USDA does require us now, and Josh Worrell's been working on a USDA grant. In our financing forum, we talked about $25,000 grants, and the remainders in loan for police cars, fire trucks, garbage trucks that we have in place now. It's our intention to apply for 2 new police cars, which would be a $25,000 grant, and the difference, approximately $27,000 would be loan, and then the town would pay the difference for putting the lights on and all that stuff.
Goes within the police budget.
It's not in the current budget because I have no expectation the federal government is going to move fast enough for us to buy any cars, nor do I expect
It'd be in
Ford Motor Company to build them fast enough for us. So it'll be in the following budget. But this is a public hearing of notification that we want to apply.
This is a,
I think 84,000, not 27.
The 84,000 includes the upfit that we talked about. That's what we paid for the last 2 vehicles. And while we're talking about it, and Chief can come in, Chief is migrating away from using sedans and going more to the SUVs.
I noticed that.
Escorts or whatever they're called, Ford Escapes, I think it may be what they're using.
Explorer.
Explorer. And so I think Chief is more intent on doing it. They're more expensive. We spent about $52,000 for the chassis last time, and I think we spend more than that for the 4-wheel drive. We don't do as much road pursuit here. It's still a practical vehicle for such purposes. But I think Chief would like to, and the last 2 we bought were purchased as 4-wheel drives. How do we afford them? If you remember, 2 years ago, we didn't drop the electric rates. We kept $34,000, 1% of the electric rates for public safety, and that bought those police cars. This year, it's going into the fire truck fund, and then this coming year, it'll go back to the fire. We set, fire, police, fire, police, fire, police.
be real nice if those SUVs could stay in town and let the gas-friendly vehicles leave town, but I digress.
Do you know what the difference is between the gas mileage between these Explorers and the
I don't know. Right?
Chargers?
Josh could find out, or the chief
Because
could
if we're
find
gonna
out.
have people driving 30 miles, to and fro, probably the ones that live the farthest need the one with the cheapest gas.
I'm sure we can find out. I don't know exactly what they are.
We won't put Chief on the spot. He just came in. Chief, we were just curious. You don't have to answer right now. We were just curious about the difference in gas mileage for the Explorers versus the patrol cars you have now. You don't have to give us an answer now, but that was just someone asked that question.
I probably don't know.
That's okay. We need a motion to approve this boilerplate resolution.
No, you have to have public hearing.
Anyone in the audience tonight to speak for or against the town's application for USDA funding to purchase 2 police vehicles? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
I move to approve.
Mr. Hasbrook has moved. Is there a second?
I second.
I'll give the second to Mr. Miller.
Be surplusing any cars anytime soon?
There are one or two sitting over there now. Could be. There are two of them that are ready to roll. Sam, I guess we can just talk about while we're here.
That's kept as a spare.
Sam's Explorer will be kept as a spare. His Explorer is being replaced this year. Okay. Any others that, Christmas Diocese is gone. That's one of the two that are sitting up there. That's completely died.
So we can use some of these funds to,
Oh, yeah. What? I probably should have covered this previously.
He's making up for lost time, Ms. Hardy.
What we do with all scrap sales and all surplus sales, we stick them in a separate line item in our money market account. And that line item currently has $80,000 in it, and it's labeled vehicle fund. Every time we sell a load of cardboard, every time we sell scrap metal, every time we sell a surplus garbage truck, all that funding goes in there, and that's how the town has gotten away from these old VDOT trucks and replaced it with a fleet of good, reliable pickup trucks that we're not worried about breaking down, okay? We put that in there. The other portion of that money that's in there is the $44,000 that was paid by VUMAC
Yeah.
in taxes. I
right.
stuck it there intentionally intending to use it to buy a dump truck. Okay, if you remember, we're trying to get some bids on dump trucks, and I think we.
How much do you make paying taxes?
They paid us $44,000.
That's the first time that facility's ever had to pay a tax in town,
They
ever.
paid the county double.
that was the back taxes.
Yeah.
Back taxes, when they ceased being a religious,
They were no longer church use.
they were no longer tax exempt.
That was a nice little bonus, that's good.
So we've got that sitting in the account, we haven't spent it. The intention would be to buy a dump truck with that money.
We've got a motion's been made and duly seconded. I'll ask for a roll call vote because of the dollars involved, starting with Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Next, you have your minutes. Clerk has done another great job cranking these out. She had less time this time to crank them out, but she did a fine job.
Move to approve the minutes from February 25th as presented.
Second.
Mr. Morgan has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We have no scheduled visitors here, but I do want to recognize, I see we have Baxter Stegall, who's in the audience. I don't know if you wish to address council?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. If the council would hear me,
We help.
speak to you.
Yes, sir, come forward. You can come now, and just, is anyone else who wants to address council during the visitors portion? I knew Mr. Stegall was coming. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir.
Is it Stegall or Stegall? How do you,
It's Stegall like T-ball.
Stegall like T-ball? Okay, we know. Stegall. Very good.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. My name is Baxter Stegall. I'm a candidate for Commonwealth's Attorney here in Nottoway, and I'd like to take a brief moment to tell you a little bit about myself. I hope I got enough brochures there. Like I said, my name is Baxter Stegall. I am currently the Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney in Lunenburg County. I am got on the ballot for the Commonwealth's Attorney's race here in Nottoway just a few weeks ago. I'm 38 years old. I'm married. My lovely wife Kelly is here with us. We live in Crewe, right in the middle of town. Prior to going to law school, when I first came to the area, I came to Farmville. I attended Hampton Sydney College. I've been between Prince Edward and Nottoway now. I've lived in Southside for 21, 22 years. I've lived in the town of Crewe for almost 10 years. I came over to Crewe to take a job with the police department. When I graduated college, I deployed with the National Guard. In fact, my first run-in with Blackstone in Nottoway County was as a young PV2 in the Virginia National Guard. I was not the post commander, I'll have you know, but I was just a young dumb grunt in the Virginia National Guard. After I graduated college, I deployed overseas where I served as a squad leader in Iraq, and I came back and became a police officer. Started in Farmville and then migrated this way. When I was a police officer with the town of Crewe, I served on the County Regional Drug Task Force where I served with Councilman Morgan, and in my work there, I worked with a lot of the different agencies. I worked with many of Chief Kuzmiak's people, working on the narcotics problems that the county faces, including in the town of Blackstone. I worked with Lieutenant Jones on a number of different cases, and reached a point after I'd been a police officer for close to a decade that I decided I wanted to take a different route and went to law school. I commuted from Crewe to Lynchburg daily. I racked up 176,000 miles on my car in 3 years, and I drove back and forth from Crewe every day to Lynchburg. And I graduated magna cum laude from Liberty University. I was an editor on the Law Review, and then got hired as soon as I got done by Mr. Clement, where I've been prosecuting ever since. Since I've been there, I've been involved in a number of different cases. My second month there, he started throwing me felony cases. I've been involved. We've had a number of homicides, number of other violent felony crimes, and I've been neck deep in every single one of them. We're a two-attorney office like Nottoway is, and we tackle it together on almost every single case. I run the entire general district docket and a good portion of the juvenile and domestic relations docket, as well as a share of the circuit court felony docket as well. If I am able to earn people's votes and take office in November, then the things that I would consider, I'd like to enact. That office, the Office of Commonwealth's Attorney, is traditionally seen as a courtroom position. To me, I've always seen it as a law enforcement position that has courtroom duties. It's important for me for that office to be involved in collaborative partnerships with the sheriff's office, with the 3 town police departments that are in the county, with the state police, the game wardens, and the Fort Pickett Security Administration that's in place there. So and ABC as well. So there's a big spread of law enforcement agencies that serve this county, and I think that the Commonwealth Attorney, that office, it's absolutely critical that they serve in a collaborative role with all the police. And that comes from the moment the call comes out. As soon as there's a shooting, as soon as there's a stabbing, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office should be involved with that case like this, meshed in with the police. So that from the minute the call comes out until through the end of the trial, the 2 agencies are supporting each other. In the beginning, Commonwealth Attorney's legal support and helping with the direction of the criminal investigation. I'm an experienced criminal investigator, so I've got a good handle on how to help detectives and young patrol officers guide their cases to a successful conclusion. And then when the charges come out, the Commonwealth Attorney takes the lead role, and the police are in support with continued investigation and serving as witnesses in the case. One of the things that I think is most important and I'd like to implement is an on-call policy where the attorneys in that office are on a rotation, and whoever the new sheriff would be, I would like to work with them. I've worked with all 3 candidates for sheriff routinely and know them well, and I would like to work out to where there's an on-call process, to where the 911 dispatcher, anytime there's a violent felony crime, serious car wreck that might wind up in someone's death, they dispatch a Commonwealth's attorney as well to the scene to help provide the legal guidance that these guys, we ask so much of our police officers and our sheriff's deputies and our troopers to make these tough legal calls in the middle of the night and to give them the support that they need, because you can't go back 2 weeks later and fix it. So that's important to me, and that's one of the things I'd like to do. I routinely get phone calls, Kelly will tell you, routinely get phone calls at 2 a.m., got one this weekend. Officer had a person pulled over, found a bunch of drugs, needed some guidance in the case, and I'd rather handle it right there by phone on the spot than try to unwind something that maybe wasn't perfect.
You get it dismissed in the preliminary hearing, right?
Yes, sir. My priorities for enforcement, I think violent crime has to be at the top of the list. You guys have had a number of high-profile violent crimes lately. Crew has had its share. This is not a spike in the crime wave across the county. These things are cyclical, but at the same time, these things are important. And it's important that violent crime, above all else, take the priority. I can't set the priorities for the police departments, but I think most of them would agree with me that that's their priorities as well. If I were to earn your vote in November, that would be my first priority, followed by drug dealers. I think drug use is a complex issue that involves a whole lot of medical and disease concerns, not alcoholism, but the drug addiction. But the drug dealing does not. There's not an excuse for it. I worked for 3 years on the drug task force here in the county. I am intimately familiar with the drug problem that this county faces and all 3 towns face with it. And drug dealers are an absolute priority after violent crime. In fact, much of the violent crime, and my third priority would be felony property crime, burglaries, larcenies of large amount, and a significant portion of the violent crime and a significant portion of the felony property crime has an immediate nexus to drugs. And so those would be the top 3 priorities that I think are most important with that office. Again, I'd like to leverage the existing relationships that I have with the different agencies, with the officers. I'd like for every officer in Nottoway to have my personal phone number. And if they need to call me at 2 a.m., that's why I got the ringer. So the biggest thing, again, is to support those police officers and help them bring the best case possible so that the Commonwealth Attorney's Office can prosecute it effectively and help make our community as safe as we can. So that's what I've got in mind. I'd love the opportunity to speak with any member of council or any member of the public who wishes to talk to me. I'd love to. I can talk your ear off if you. I'll give you a run for your money.
You can't out-talk our town manager. It's okay.
So, but again, I'd love to have your support come November, and anyone who'd like to talk at any point in time, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Good luck to you.
Yes, sir.
Sure we'll see a lot more of you as the year progresses.
Thank you.
Thank you. And your wife, I believe, was you made your debut at the Arts and Crafts Festival last year, I believe, didn't you? There was a wonderful candle I bought from you. Very good. Very good. Any other visitors? There's two opportunities. This is opportunity one. There's another opportunity at the end of the agenda. Anyone else? All right, let's get right into our fire chief's report. Chief Tomer, good to have you back.
Evening. Kind of extensive report this month, but just tried to highlight a whole bunch of stuff. Last week, I met with the Board of Supervisors, the budget hearing. I am doing my best to ensure some additional revenue or financial stability for our organization for the years to come. I did ask for them to consider $300,000 if we do get the ladder truck grant. That would provide the opportunity for really no revenue to come out of the town, since it is a county vehicle and we're looking at a $1.2 to $1.3 million purchase. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they include it. It doesn't guarantee that we have a grant, but at least we're not screaming if we do get a grant and ask where the money's coming from. We have our annual Easter egg drop on the 21st. This is going to be, I believe, the day after the Harris Memorial Easter egg drop,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
They have a hunt, I believe. Y'all have the drop and they have the hunt.
Correct. Yes.
Drop is you got to go by and see the drop, folks. That's something I never. Amazing. To see those kids.
Have had no concussions yet.
Les Nessman.
We had 4 of our juniors. The Firefighter 1 class that was held in Lunenburg surprisingly had a 100% pass rate, which is pretty impressive for a course of that nature. And all of our members that attended, all juniors, completed that course. We have an additional member that's traveling to Farmville now for Firefighter 2 class, and we have 2 members that are traveling to Lawrenceville for Firefighter 1 class. So, in accords of trying to save money, I applied for several grants. The majority of these I'm hoping to use funds out of fire programs. The big one, one's for Dominion Energy. The other one is the Rescue Squad Assistance Fund to replace our airbags. We recently learned that our airbags are 20 years old, and they're supposed to be out of service in 10 to 15 years after use. So we're jumping on that to try and get that replaced with a 50-50 grant through the Office of EMS and the Virginia Department of Forestry. And we have a tornado drill tomorrow at 9:45 in the morning. You'll hear the wonderful tornado siren blasting as long as the weather holds out, and make sure you practice your plan.
Very good. Very good. Any questions for the chief? Chief, thank you. Thank you for your leadership on the funding. It takes a lot of courage to go before the Board of Supervisors and ask for our special tax, but hey, we commend you. Good job. Next up, folks, we have your payment of bills. We have your first batch. They total $825,960.52. These are not yet approved. I'd entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and duly seconded. Any discussion?
Under Jackson Insurance Business License Reimbursement, we had brought this up, that insurance agents are exempt from business licenses, correct? What is the thought behind that and why?
What? Some lawmaker who ran an insurance company did that.
Well, we need to address that, I believe, and they need to be required to have a business license. That's not fair.
There are a series of exemptions in the code of Virginia.
was renewing his license and it was back.
He paid it legitimately, so that's why he's getting a reimbursement.
Insurance companies are not obligated to pay the-
So it would be against code for us to mandate that all insurance companies.
You can't do it. If the state code does not permit it,
And you can't do it.
Can you do it? Dillon Rule State? We're Dillon Rule State.
we are a Dillon Rule state.
It's gotta say you can
The
do it.
government explaining to you what you can and cannot do here.
That's an interesting law, though. That's statewide. That is a statewide rule.
That's crazy, is to,
Yeah, it's
If you
interesting.
do the state code, there's all kinds of things, towns and cities with populations between 3,000 and 4,000 are allowed to do certain things, so they create.
Interesting. So you're gonna go, we're gonna change that, we're gonna change that?
obviously we can.
I'll inform Mr. Jackson that you, and your uncle.
No, I mean, I think legitimately every business in the town of Blackstone, no one should be exempt.
I would agree.
I mean,
Fairness is a big thing. I think Mr. Nash is onto something. Can we look into that and find out the history of that, just find out why? There's many lawyers in the General Assembly. I'm surprised attorneys have to pay a business license fee.
Okay.
No offense to the attorneys.
I got a question. I got a question. Okay, so you sold the town the,
a guy, Tom just asked me this.
Yeah.
A guy, we got a golf cart, a guy needed cash when I bought it, so I gave him the cash, the town just reimbursed me.
Reimburse them for the golf cart.
$3,000. And you waived your finder's fee, right?
Yes.
Okay. Waived, just no commission from Mr. Nash on that.
That was budgeted,
Okay,
so.
all right. All right, any other discussion or questions on the first batch of bills? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Miller.
right?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 7-0.
While they mentioned
Yes.
golf carts, I did hear, this is our first month using golf carts,
The
and they
response was positive.
are
from the guy.
cutting their times down by days.
On
a
read
day.
meters?
Yes,
They like it.
Well, that's important.
and I've heard that there's possibility of needing one more.
That's
So,
great.
Investigate with Dan and see. I don't think the electric cart will work that we currently
No,
have.
you
Charlie
gas
was
car for
here.
that.
He was pretty positive about it, because I asked him, I said, is that thing helping or hurting? Slowing it down. He said, well, I don't want to do it in 20-degree weather.
Yeah, wintertime would not be
But,
fun.
hey, if it is going to clear.
Josh Pope told me it cut it down by at least a full day.
That's great. That's awesome. Time is money. Good job, Mr. Nash. Our second batch of bills total $164,786.03. They're broken down by department. Members of council, what's your pleasure on these?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thompson is second Mr. Nash's motion. Any discussion on those bills? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Miller.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. We have a committee report from your Fire and Water Committee. Colonel Tom, there were no recommendations, just informational. Anything you care to highlight or discuss?
Well, Philip and I went over and walked Powell Street, and looked at it, and I think, as he met with Mr. Bolson,
Monday.
and I think we can work out a deal here, but I think that we can, when we talked about how it was gonna cut across her driveway and all that stuff, when we walked down there and looked at it, I think we can cut it across her driveway further down and then angle it and bring it back so it won't impact her yard at all.
And then give the,
Stay with those big trees.
and do we want to sell, there was talk of vacating Powell Street as well.
I think logically, if she would grant us easement outside of Powell Street to satisfy what Tom was talking about, then we in return, but remember, you gotta hold a public hearing and everything, so how much guaranteeing you can do before the procedural side, but I do think the intention would be to abandon Powell Street for the simple fact is, one, puts it behind us, and two, her sister, the adjoining property owner's home is actually across the line. This would satisfy, put her home entirely on property.
This is a street on paper. It's unopened, it was drawn on a piece of paper.
So Tessie confirmed that it's a legitimate street.
It's her opinion, it's a legitimate street. I do think that you guys would still have to vote a formal acceptance and some procedural things, but Tessie does believe the act of the subdivision being recorded did make it a public dedication.
But is there a conflict? Is there a conflict or a misunderstanding at Nottaway about this property?
At Nottaway?
Yes.
Well, the claim,
Because I'm saying, from what I'm hearing, and I think you've heard the same thing too, Nottaway is saying one thing, and I think this person is There's a big misunderstanding somewhere.
Well, the facts are that in 1904, we've got a copy, believe it or not, Mr. Lee glued all those things in that book, and sure enough, we used it. In 1904, there was a hand-drawn subdivision plat of all the lots that fronted on Powell Street, including as far up where the primary school and Wigglesworth ball field are. That portion of town was subdivided and recorded in 1904, okay? In 1904, the rules were the active recordation of that subdivision plat dedicated for public use, and the subdivision plat clearly says 30-foot right-of-way. It's not part of her deed.
And she's not been paying taxes on that land that's designated as a public street. But Mr. Goldston, I got to give him credit. He's not an attorney by trade, but he raised a good issue about where's the deed. It's a logical question. If we really own it,
But in 1904, there was no
right,
obligation to do a deed.
right.
And to tell you the truth, I don't know where the minutes are from the 1904.
They're not there.
Yeah,
Right.
I can't find them and I can't recreate them. Jesse's confident that we can use Powell Street. I think we can kill a lot of birds with one stone.
I think so,
We can
too.
try to make Ms. Williams satisfied by getting it out of her front yard, and it's Powell Street, but it looks like her front yard. There are
because
bushes on it and stuff.
Like he said, they're not in the process of trying to cause anybody any
Correct.
problem. They
right.
just want to get it settled.
That's right.
I think both sides can
that's-
settle it. I think Mr. Goldston is eminently reasonable, came back to see me. I think we can cut a deal. Frankie can get what he would like. Ms. Williams can get what she likes, and the town can.
And these things happen in small towns. We discovered doing a grant project on the Church Street on the west end that a home that was going to be rebuilt was built on public right-of-way.
We'd already tore the old one down.
Right. Those things happen when small towns, of course now in the modern era, we record everything a lot better. But you go back 80 years, and you had 3 people working for the town at the time probably. Just a lot different. But,
I think it's manageable, and I think it'll take one more Fire and Water Committee meeting to bring you
okay.
a conclusion.
Anything else on fire and water? Good to see that moving forward. Good. On the health and ordinance, Ms. Jones, we have 2 policies tonight, I believe, 2 recommendations. One is on,
On the YouTube, she's talking about it?
She's gonna help you with the extension policy.
Okay.
Treasurer Harris.
Okay, first policy, sorry, I'm not at my page. Budget billing, can we do that one first?
The extensions. I like
Extension
what,
policy, okay. That just states that any customer can have 2 10-day extensions within a 12-month period. Right now, we have a lot more than
you
that.
kind of wing it right now. You really don't have anything to hang your
Right.
hat on.
Now,
Right,
they
we
still-
have
They
no,
still pay interest charges.
oh yeah.
And to pay the reconnect fee too.
By the time, cutoff day is here, they've already been applied a 5% and a $12.50 pink slip fee. And even if they're not disconnected, they're still required to pay the reconnect fee, because people that are disconnected have to pay
You
it.
want to incentivize them to,
Right,
right.
so 2 10-day extensions in a 12-month period.
It has got a little out of hand.
Will there be, and one of the things I heard on the committee discussion, will there be any leeway given if someone, we've been in the hospital, does the town manager have some discretion to,
I think I retain the discretion, if given by council.
Okay.
To violate that 2 times a year. I hope we don't do it very often. It really has gotten to be a lot, and you're sympathetic, people come in there with the kids, and I can't pay my bill, and.
But if there is leeway, a lot of people
I was about
will
to say,
always use that.
I think
think twice a year
we're
is
already
fine.
given leeway with.
And you get 10, you already get 15 extra days.
Right.
Past the regular billing period.
Right.
So really, this will give you 25 extra days to pay your bill.
right, you can accrue a full billing month plus the 15 days, then the extension,
Another
like you
10
say, that's
days.
50, like I said, that's 2 months almost. So what's council's pleasure?
Let me ask you one question. Okay, you and I, when we had the talk, I forgot to ask you. Now, what if a person has a type of medical machine? How does that work?
So they can get a note from their doctor if they're on oxygen, that if there's a power outage, they are the first to be reconnected.
I'm talking about as far
But
as,
as far as being exempt from paying their bill,
not exempt, but I mean, if
Disconnected.
disconnected, how does that work?
they can use the 10-day extension in order to come up with the funds.
We can go to help.
Yeah, we have plenty. We offer people. There's Steps in Farmville, Help here in town, social services, different places that can help them pay their bill. That we.
So in other words, 10-to-1 odds, if you got a machine, or if you have a medical emergency, your lights probably wouldn't get cut off.
Right. If we can give you that 10-day extension, and within that 10
got to
days, they can
register that
contact
they
Steps
have
or
a
Help
machine.
or.
They got to register with them that they have a machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember someone in my neighborhood had a machine 2 blocks over, and I remember whenever we had an outage, they would always, a police officer would go over there and make sure she was okay. This is a proposed policy to to put it in writing, to give our staff something to hang their hat on? What's your pleasure, members of council? 2 10-day extensions per 12 months, none more after that? And then after that 12 months expires,
Right.
you can start anew again. What's your pleasure? Is there a motion to approve this?
Make a motion to approve it.
Mr. Morgan has moved. Is it Ms. Thompson is second on Mr. Morgan's motion? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And then property maintenance.
I think it says it will be at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's an update. I asked the committee to look at the property maintenance code. There's been some discussion about that, some good discussion, and I believe we're still having our attorney look into the rental property. Is going to start very soon.
April 1st, if I'm not mistaken, that does begin. Chesty is confident that we have adopted the property code as needed to enforce property maintenance side of things. The multi-headed hydra, and you got to think through it. And the list that the committee wanted to come up with was, what are those things we want to inspect? Are we looking for chipping paint? Are we looking for safe and sanitary? And I think that list would dovetail quite a bit with what Yvonne has come up with. We're not worried about drawer pullers. We're worried about roof leaking and mold and all those kinds of things. So I don't think you have to adopt any new codes, but if you want the enforcement of it, I think statutorily you can do it now.
But because we've already adopted, if we have one of those situations, let's face it, everyone can think of a house anywhere where, gosh, that place is really getting run down, and then it finally gets to the point where it's like, hey, we have the vehicle by which someone could come to the town and say, look, can y'all at least send them a letter or something to maybe get that. There's some properties in town that are marginal right now at best, and they're not getting better. And I'm not a big government fan, believe me. I'm like Mr. Nash says, and what you said, I don't want to send Mr. Morgan a note, but, see some pine needles out of your gutters, Mr. Morgan, because mine are overflowing too. But, the problem is when you have a lot of absentee landlords in a community like this, and they're not responsible, guess what steps in? Government. Gradually, government will be empowered to do that which the people will not do responsibly.
And the reason for the list is that we don't just enforce the code verbatim. The intention was to pick out the things that are specific. We're not looking for, you got wood stacked outside of your house, or you got kids' toys in the yard, or any of those types of things. We want to look for healthy and safe and sanitary and try to focus the effort if it's going to be.
Especially with the tenants, the people that live, we got 65% of our residents in Blackstone are rent payers. And we got some great landlords in town that are amazing, and we have some that are not. And that's where we want to focus, Yvonne, and the towns. Let's face it, there's some places where okay, they'll get inspected, but they're not an emergency. But there's some places in Blackstone where it's like, we got to go inspect that. All right, well, very good. So that's just informational.
And we'll make sure the clerk has her house painted.
Yes, indeed. Bright orange. Stand out. We have on your consent agenda, we have several good events coming up. We have the Good Friday Carrying the Cross, the annual cruise-in schedule, and the community Easter egg hunt at Swartz Tavern.
Move to approve all three.
Second.
Mr. Miller has seconded Mr. Nash's motion. And I see Mr. Jerry Cole here. Jerry, thanks for your leadership on that Good Friday event. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. That takes us to unfinished business. And our first unfinished business is budget billing. I have one thing I want to, I have not discussed with anybody. I want to throw it out there. I was approached by more than one person. And I got to thinking, I love the fact that the policy requires, look, you have to live at your address for 12 months so the town can track your usage. That's just good business sense. And I like the spirit that says you must have 6 months of good credit history. But I was thinking a lot of our residents who need the budget billing are ones that have had trouble and paid a late fee. So how about this? I'm just throwing this out here. If they've been late, but they don't owe us a dime, why can't we let them also be eligible? Because guess what? If they're late in the budget plan, by rule, they get kicked out. When I feel like maybe we're turning down some people that really need it, and at least give it a try. Because guess what?
I think the only reason that the staff not recommended against that, but recommended the 6-month good standing was because what if they stick you and don't pay the month's bills at the high usage months? I mean, then, yeah, they may only be paying $200 on their budget billing,
But they may
their
pay it for
bill
2
is-
months and then they owe $1,000 bills.
Oh, the true up is gonna be a challenge. That 12-month, folks, is gonna be,
So really, we're setting them up for failure if we do that. And that's where I look at it and go, well, it's better if they know up front what their bill's gonna be instead of having the true up come up and then their bill's $1,200.
right.
Because then you know, I mean, that would be hard for anyone up here.
And I also
even come
want
up
to point
with.
out that Jessica Meadows, the budget billing clerk, when people call, she's being sure to tell them, details about the program, that in the true-up month, they may have a large balance to pay. 'Cause
How
I
many
know-
of you had apply? I know she's not here, but
20, 25 maybe?
do you know how many have been approved?
I don't. I can find
I would
out.
say it's about 25%.
Last time I talked, only 8 had applied, and I think 2 or either 3 had been.
We had a couple last week, yeah.
But the reason they're not qualifying though is because, not because they haven't lived at their house for 12 months, it's because they may have been late once or twice in the last 6 months. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And we all may have different mindsets. We're doing this to try to help those in our community that have had hard times. We don't want the town to get stuck. No one wants the town to get stuck.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Okay. It's like this. Look, Mr. Mayor,
Call me Billy.
why should you let a man go on a budget plan? And then at the end of okay, he's on the budget plan. And at the end of the year, how's this man gonna settle up?
Well, it could be a woman as well.
A man or
Yeah,
woman?
I mean,
Yeah.
I've actually I've had a man and a woman come to me.
Okay, but my thing is this, and I don't agree with it.
That's fine. That's fine.
I just don't. I don't see it.
I just want to throw it out there.
And I know the circumstances.
Colonel Tom.
Right now, there's nothing to stop any individual in town from going over there and saying, hey, how much did I pay for the whole year? And I just wanna start paying $200 a month. They
Right.
can do that right now.
They've been doing it for several people.
Right.
They don't have to be on the budget plan, they can do that on their own. So if people are concerned about it, go do that.
Well, I thought by doing this budget plan, we're gonna eliminate all these little individual plans that y'all do for certain people.
That's what I thought too.
Because that's what's been driving y'all crazy, is, Tom Smith has got this, and Miss Betty's got this, and aren't we trying to be uniform?
That's special payment plans.
Well, I'm
This
just
is
saying, if I wanted
paying
to pay you
ahead.
$200 every month, I could, and you would credit my account.
Credit my account.
Right.
Right.
So what's the difference? I mean, I'm just
That's
saying,
what I thought we were good of.
if they're not eligible to get in the plan, because
Right.
they don't have a good,
I think the
think
intention
Monica
is
got
to
some Just do it
offset
yourself.
the high bill. So the intention is, and so we're taking a snapshot of their 12 months. So the intention is not to have a huge $1,000 true-up month. Because for their lower months, might only be $125 actual usage, but they may pay more, because that's gonna help offset those $500 bills.
But the average person is not going to do that.
You don't
So
think
then
they're
that's
gonna
on
pay?
them.
No, they're going to pay what you told them to pay.
Right, but
That's what they're
the
going to
budget
pay.
billing is
Right.
for, is they're gonna have to realize on your lower months, you're doing the use $125.
You're paying a little more.
You're paying $225, but that's gonna
Exactly, to
offset
offset
your.
the high.
In the winter, you're gonna pay less, and something right.
But how many people you think going to do that?
Well, we don't know. We're not gonna know until we get into this thing. I saw Mr. Michael Bagley, and I saw, yes, Mr. Bagley.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My thing is called communication. Everybody in this room might understand it, okay? The people need to be, it needs to be explained to the people how it's gonna work. We need to have a forum, open shed meeting, and meet in the backyard and tell the people. Get the people that know about this program, let them stand in front of them and tell them how it's gonna work. I said before, 4 years ago, I brought this same thing to the committee when Mr. Green was sitting in the chair. He told me it wasn't gonna work, and I told him it will work. But you got to get the information to the people. Well, if we get the people here, we gotta get our townspeople to come out and listen to the information that's being given. That's the hardest thing right there.
Right.
Me, 110%, I'm for the program. I know it will work. I've been in several states where I use that program. It will work. But information, true information needs to be given to the people. The thing is, getting our people out to listen to the information.
With the town staff, just in fairness, we've had several public meetings, input meetings, and I think they were put on the power bill as well. But like you say, human nature is not to come to meetings.
I think what has truly brought this up, years ago was not so much those that are delinquent, is to help those that are on fixed income.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be Jennifer Daniel, she knows that she's only making $1,000 a month. She needs to be able to have that in her budget that she has $200 a month going out. And I think that's where you're gonna see the majority of help. We're not saying that we don't wanna help those that are always delinquent, but this is to help those seniors and disabled, whatever, that get fixed income, to have a fixed amount that they pay each month.
And most of our fixed income pay on time.
Correct, and I think that's where we're really looking to help, is the
Okay.
main thing.
I saw Monica Frisbee with her hand up.
Yeah. Mr. Wilkinson had said about, paying $200 a month. If you have to pay your whole bill, correct?
Or more,
I mean,
you can pay more.
Of course, you can always
Right.
pay more.
That's what he's mentioning, yeah.
But, yeah, that's what I'm saying is in the months when it's less than $200.
Okay.
If you just pay 200, and your bill's only 100, then you're building up a credit so that when you do get that $600 bill, you don't have to pay but $200 because you had a $400.
So now I better
That's
understand
what
what
I'm
you're
saying.
saying.
You're talking about under the budget plan.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm
Well,
just saying you
currently-
can do it on your, you can do it yourself.
Right, but I
Like, I
thought,
get a bill for $100.
Right.
I pay $200. I have a $100 credit now.
y'all still do that?
Oh, yeah. You
Even with the budget plan?
Yeah, that's.
God
that's
bless y'all. Y'all got so much to keep
credit
track
stuff.
of as is. I don't know how y'all do it.
Don't turn down money.
No, I get that.
So the second part to that is, depending upon when that true up month is, for somebody that is having financial problems, a lot of people depend on their income tax. I don't get one, but anyhow, they depend on that. So if their true up month was, say, January, February, the times when they were gonna get their income tax, then for them, that would be a benefit and they, possibly could do it. I don't know, but it depends on them knowing when their
And
true
a lot of
up
people
month
do
is.
that. If they get their tax money, they'll come in and put $500-600 down on their bill to have a credit for a couple months.
Right, so, I mean, I'm just saying, with that true up, that could possibly work for people
Yep.
as far as the budget is concerned. But I think there, again, it depends on the individual,
There it
on
is.
what's gonna help, because it's not gonna help everybody.
Right. It may not be
But
helpful to some
nothing's
people.
gonna help everybody.
Well, some of it boils down to self-discipline. For a matter of fact, last February, we had the highest bills in the history of the town. We issued 347 pink slips. This past February, which has been really, we have not had a bitter cold winter, we issued 15 more pink slips this February than last February. Now, was it colder? No, it absolutely was not. It's actually been warmer. But my only thing is, again, I don't want anybody to tag the liberals to tag them. I'm just thinking, to qualify, I love the first part. You got to be at your current residence 12 months. That's so the town can give you an accurate reading. Well, Tom's average bill is about $264, so that's going to be his payment. I'm just thinking, I think the 6 months of good credit history is almost a hurdle for those that need it the most. Makes it harder for them to get. And if you enroll them in there and they're late on the first month, they're out of the plan.
I just wanted to bring up for the true up month.
Yeah.
It will be no secret. We have went back and forth with our accounting system. They will know every month, this is your budget
Oh,
plan
wow.
due, but this is your running total.
You'll have a running total.
So it'll never be a surprise. And so
That's
the
good.
true up month being April, they may know in February, hey, I owe this month.
That's great.
So, we don't want it to be a secret. We want it out there.
It will be
They'll
on the
see
bill
it on
every
their
month.
statement. This is your true total, and this is your budget payment. We made sure to structure it like that, so
True total is
there will
off
be no
125,
surprise.
but you're
Yes.
paying 200.
That's great. The consumer always knows. The consumer always knows.
Oh, yeah, it won't be.
Excellent.
You're more than welcome to pay more than the budget.
Right. But the good news is there's no surprises, so that's excellent. Monica, yes, one more
You got
time.
up there and said, Michael
let's-
Bass may be a little time. You got that. That's what that was about.
So with the budget, okay, I know now you're accepting.
Yes.
Is that something that's ongoing?
Every month. Every month you have until, what, the 25th to enroll?
You can apply
25th of
each month.
Each month.
You can apply at
So-
any time.
So the person could work towards getting on the budget if they haven't had 6 months of
Exactly.
good.
That is correct.
bill. They could know, okay, I need to pay my bills for 6 months
Pay 6
consistently.
bills
Right.
at a time.
It's not a
and you can
1 month enrollment period,
Okay,
no.
that's
it's-
what I'm,
Right.
okay. So they can work towards.
They
that.
certainly have a goal to,
They
yes,
really want to.
yes.
Just for example, me and a couple of other girls that live in town, they're using us as guinea pigs right now to see. So I am the one, like in the winter, my bills are cheaper because I heat with propane. I spend $2,000 a year in propane, but in the summer, my bills are higher.
Right.
Because, of the electric for the air conditioning. But, so this month, they gave me a bill my bill was $142 regular, but in the budget billing, it was $192. So that is,
Yeah.
so I'm having to come up with $50 more this month.
I'd rather pay what I owe, period. The budget plan just doesn't turn me on one bit, but I'm also,
me on
I don't want you
Yeah.
to use my money.
right,
It
right.
doesn't turn me on either.
I see Jerry Cole with some words of wisdom to
This budget billing thing is a good thing for certain people in the county and the town. It's not gonna help a large percentage of people, like Brittany said, the people that are set income, that's ideal for those people, because they have the set income, and they don't have any wiggle room, they have month, so that's perfect for them. And I'm in the Southside area that y'all didn't get back in the legal thing, so I've been on budget billing ever since I've been there, so it's, what they do, what they've changed since rates of, the weather's been crazy with the temperature and stuff.
Right.
They change their budget billing every 6 months, they regulate it. So if it's, they see that you're gonna pay more, they give you, they up it a little bit. They say you're using less, and they bring it down. So that could be, something could help your customers, and that's just another thing to worry about to do, but anyway, they do that. But other people, I have budget class once a month, and if y'all get this thing going, I can encourage people to do that, because that's a thing. But you mentioned the word discipline, that's a problem with most people in the town. 352 pink slips. We try to teach in the class that every time you get a pink slip, that's $25, is it $25 now?
It's $12.50, but you already have a 5% late fee
So
going on today.
$30, $40.
Yes.
You multiply that times 12 months, that's $500.
Good point, Jerry.
So how would you like to have that $500 back that you can spend on Christmas gifts or vacation or something like that? So I don't want to be negative, but the town did set something up. Ever how many years ago you made that extra 30 days? That was a 30 days for people to fail, because they're gonna put the bill, that's what these people are doing now.
Well-
They're putting the bill off to next month. Everybody I've talked to that calls for help, they say the bill is due the 15th. I said, no, the bill's not due the 15th, it's due the 30th.
That's right.
They think the bill's due the 15th of the month.
The next 15th.
Next 15th.
Yeah, they think the next 15th, right.
Cut off day.
That's cutoff day.
Everybody up for failure, you can't pay the bill, not just enough to pay the bill in 30 days.
You,
Last minute
you're right.
cutoff, these people here. This is, budget's not gonna help these people at all.
How many do you roughly see on average for budget classes?
Well, we don't get a lot of people in the budget class. I try to work with people.
Individually, as
Small people, small
Gotcha.
groups, because, just getting the idea of, what's, can't even think what the price is. What's needs versus wants. So a need is electricity and rent. And a lot of people don't know the difference between electricity and rent.
Food.
The cell phone, the cable TV, and, the priorities are wrong. They spend it there and they don't pay their electric bill or their rent. And I say, well,
right.
where are you gonna live if you get kicked out? Is your cable gonna be, if you're not living there, well, why are you paying the cable first? So, anyway, but I'm just saying that, you wanna set people up and encourage people that this budget billing is gonna help everybody, because it's not.
Right.
And, like I said, you're setting people up for failure, like you did with the extra 30 days, because you can be almost 2 months before your bill is due, so.
But we also-
That makes it hard for me in my budget class.
Well, I want to assure you, though, my mindset was the exact opposite. I just wanted Blacksand residents to be able to keep their money longer, and that was my mindset. But like you say, there are a lot of people that,
You're the one benefiting from the interest if they do pay the bills, but.
well, yeah.
It's coming out of their pocket where in just 1 month, they can get that 1 month caught up with their, and I encourage people, most people have gotten their tax refund back, but when people get their tax refund, I tell them, well, get your bill paid up in time. And remember, it's due the 30th of the month.
Right.
Pay it for 2 months, get yourself caught up, and start paying it then. So if they can do that, and I can encourage, if you get this budget billing for 6 months, I can encourage them to.
Well, like I said, Mr.
4
Moncur,
months ahead, then you just got 3 months to pay on time.
the late Sam Moncur predicted, and I disagreed, and he was right. He said the number of pink slips would not change by giving folks 2 more weeks to pay, and he was exactly right.
Maybe we can offer an incentive budget class and give, just for the customer coming, give them $10 off their next bill.
Well,
In the long run, it will help the town.
sure.
because you're
Incentivize.
gonna pay your
Incentivize. But let's get back to the business. Hey, members of council, let's get back to the business at hand. We've all said our piece. We have the proposed budget billing plan in front of you, and we'll start. This is ready for approval. What's your pleasure?
I move to approve.
approve as presented. Is there a second to Mr. Morgan's motion?
Second.
All right, I'll give a second to Mr. Nash. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Brittany, thank you, staff. What y'all do is amazing. We've done taking care of number 2. That was approved. Unfinished number 3, we get to Army grants. Council wanted this back on the agenda. Any updates on Army grants? Have you gotten us a check for $1 million yet? You've not, doggone it, Philip.
I wasn't here last month when the discussion was so, I think there are grant dollars out there. I think that they can be had. I think that we discussed it at the Building and Property Committee most recently. We said, what's the next step? There's all kinds of things. And Walton Mac hasn't been wrong about some of them. These are legitimately places where there are some dollars that I think could be successful. Committee asked the question, where do we go next? And I think before we start applying for grant money, I think the council got to decide that something we're going to do. I don't want to send Yvonne or myself making commitments because no grant is free. There's a match to every one of them. 20%, 50%, 5%, whatever it is, there's a match. And when you apply for grant money, you got to say the town is willing to stick it in there. I think Walter Mack has done a yeoman's job in finding the sources. Great, no doubt about it. But I still think even industrial revitalization funds or DHCD funds, I think there's a match involved. And I think council got to decide, are we going to do the armor or not?
You got
And
three.
I make that as a staff member plaintiff call, not because I like the armor or don't like the armor. Obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum many times. But if we're going to move forward on the armor, fine with me. Fine with you all. Fine with all of us. But council needs to say we're going.
There's really 3 options: Brownfield, the IRF, the Industrial Revitalization Fund, and DHCD.
Phase 2 DHCD, that's right.
And
But all of them,
Federal grant for
I think USDA rural development, same place we buy police cars. I think that there are some grant dollars, not for construction, but I think there are grant dollars for modernization, telecommuting, computer upgrades, those kind of.
Outfit the building.
Outfit the
Yeah.
building. I think there's some money available there.
But in fairness to what Philip's saying, he's absolutely right. It's like the chicken or the egg. We can identify all the best grants in the world, even ones that have a 2% match, something crazy like that. Council has to say go.
this is where the committee came back and we're like, we're at loss, where do we go? And that's why we had mentioned
The voting.
the voting day.
And I've had a number of people ask me that I've been surprised at the level of interest. Their big concern that come to me as citizens is not whether they're pro or against the Army or whatever. It's like, how in the world would y'all begin to word something like that? And everyone has given me, I've had people send me sample ballots, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, as a voter, it's just like, it's just too long. It's got to be concise, and it's got to be honest. It's got to be, and we can't slay that dragon tonight. But anybody on council have any comments, or what's the next step? What is the next step? Even if it's a study, what is the next step?
You gotta, because this is just starting to go back and forth, so it's like he says, either we're gonna do it or we're not gonna do it. So I say next month, let's get what entails us doing it. We ought to know what it is not doing it. So the thing is, say we put all this effort in, we do find a miraculous way to restore the building. Who's gonna pay for the upkeep?
Town of Blackstone.
Because you got a huge investment that you just put over there, and over years past, bills have become dilapidated because no upkeep was performed.
Certainly. Just like the same people who take care of the Officers Club, the county of Nottaway does, so it would be the town of Blackstone.
And my thing is this too, and if you want to do this, you can't just do it for just. It has to be done for everybody. It cannot be done just for one set of people.
No.
If you're going to use taxpayers' money, which the town manager just told you, you just can't say, I'm going to take this taxpayers' money and do it for one set of people.
No, certainly not. No, I've heard no one propose. Yeah, you're right.
This is what I'm saying. It needs to be a committee.
Which one set of, I don't understand
What I'm saying is,
that's talking about.
okay, let me rephrase it. Okay, what I'm saying, it needs to be incorporated into where everybody, it's of interest to everybody.
Right, that's what this council controls the building, so certainly this council, I know y'all pretty well. I don't see anybody in this council is going to say, I make a motion, we renovate the Armory only for private weddings and receptions and no, we all know it's going to be operated by the people. And you're going to be the board of directors of the group. We've got a bunch of Armory volunteers that have raised money, but they don't control the building.
Okay. And another thing, I heard you say that you was gonna get the council was gonna pick an Armory committee, am I right? Didn't you say that?
We had mentioned.
We had
would
talked
like
about
to
that.
Have someone to form a ballot.
Okay,
Right, ballot.
okay, so what happens to the committee that you have already?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I know the answer, but I will tell you this. First thing I do is I write them a letter as mayor thanking them for the money they've raised and the work they've done inside the building. But at some point, I think the Armory Committee would love, and I can't speak for them, they would love to see the project done, and they would like to say, good, well done, Blackstone, and they become users of the facility, just like I might rent it for my other daughter's wedding one day, or someone may have a high school reunion, or it may be like I said, everyone's got preferences. We can't get bogged down this here, but I see that building being used as the sun rises and the sun sets, from seniors to little kids, and then at certain times, other weeknights or weekends, it's available for rent.
You got kids.
Yep.
You got senior citizens.
Yep.
You got old men like me and you.
Go on.
Yeah,
I mean, you got different type people, Billy.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, we need to form a committee that's going to look out for everybody's interests.
You're talking about a committee for the ballot. See, this council has not yet answered the question, and their pros and cons. Do you want to do what Mr. Nash said with the voting day or not? I've got people that love the Armory and don't like the Armory, and they're both convinced it's to hurt them that their side's going to lose. And I don't want to see anything divide the town further in this building, and us have people campaigning in the streets, vote no or vote yes. That would be even worse than what we are now.
And just remember, our property tax, real estate tax is currently 22 cents.
22 cents per 100.
So each penny only brings in an extra $16,000, correct?
$16,600.
So to fund it, whatever way we go, whether it's community center, Armory, whatever it be.
Local match.
It's
hundreds of thousands.
It's got to come from somewhere. The call for somewhere.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, no doubt. If you get $1 million in grant funding, assume it's
Then you say
Sure.
you got $200,000 left. I mean,
sure. And just so everybody knows out there, no one out here, including me, believes that once you build the Armory or build a new community center, it's a money loser. But rental income will help offset the maintenance cost. Right. But it's a loser. I mean, and some people out there say, Billy, it's not a vital core function of government, so forget it. That's a reasonable, it's a logical theory. I happen to disagree. I think I watched Saturday night dozens of children walk by and pose in front of the Love and in front of the mural. And I said to myself, you know what? What if the prom was just 2 blocks away? They wouldn't have to drive to pick it. Guess there'd be even more kids dining out in downtown Blackstone to go to the prom. Yes, not only prom, had the earliest prom they've ever had. But what's the next step, council? Do you want to come, Mr. Morgan, maybe what Mr. Morgan's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Lonnie, we're going to come back next month, spend the next 30 days with a gut check, and what's your feeling? Where do you want to
I
vote?
feel like we need to move forward with this. Either it's going to be a yay or a nay.
To proceed with grant funding.
Yes.
Proceed with.
Just see.
And I come back to you with a finance plan for those things that I think we'd be successful. I give you a worst case scenario.
Right.
Yes.
I can use Walter Mack's, the study that was prepared, I say Walter Mack, but the Armory Group had commissioned a study, use that as my base for dollar figures, do an amortization schedule on that. This is worst case. No grant, this is what it impact, and then start whittling way back down from that.
So you're saying for him to go ahead and apply for grants?
Well,
because he can't get figures until we apply. I mean,
any kind of grant that we would submit is
yes, Ms.
always
Hazelwood.
requires a
Well,
resolution.
Sorry.
Let me hear Mr. Miller, then Monica.
Why don't we get concrete? Why don't we decide, get this ballot going first? Find out where the interest is at.
The only problem I see with that is, what if you don't have that many people that vote?
We only had 30% vote in the last election. It was a pretty
Right.
epic election, and that's pitiful turnout.
But you giving the people a chance to say it. If they don't participate, hey, you gave them a chance.
Why not have a public hearing? The people who wants to talk about it, let them come.
But what is
And
that?
then we kind of listen to what
They're not
they,
gonna come and
Well, let's
say.
let them finish. Let Ms. James finish.
we're the ones who want to come. I mean, if they really talking about it, let them come. We listen to what they have to say, and then we go from there.
I think it would have to be a special meeting. It would have to be a special
Yes.
meeting by itself.
Yes.
Hold on, I'm gonna get to everybody's got their hands up because we're having a Army preliminary. I think that's a logical point. I've said we'll go to Monica, then Kathy Wooten, and then Yvonne.
So, I understand, and I heard you say, that the Armory belongs to the town of Blackstone.
The people of Blackstone, yes, ma'am.
But with the Armory committee, they have special usage? I mean, cause that becomes the issue. You know, they've done a great job, and thank you for what they've done. But I think with the Armory committee and the way it is now, it's not considered to be a Blackstone property.
Okay.
You know, even though
They don't
I
own it.
understand that the council can make a decision at any point, any time, but that's not the way it
The perception.
is. Exactly.
But but I want everybody to hear this. These are facts. Okay, it's important to say this. The building's owned by the town of Blackstone. The Armory Group has asked for permission, and each time they have been giving permission to go in there and do work at their expense.
Okay.
Just like, so it'd be the same deal if you had a bunch of folks who want to go in there and paint the library, But at the end of the day, they're just a good bunch of volunteers. They have no authority on the building. They have only authority they have is that which they've been given by the people's representatives here in these chambers.
Okay. My suggestion, and this is just a suggestion, not to offend anybody, I think the council needs to take it back and from there make a decision. That way you take public opinion out of it.
Okay.
And it belongs back to the council, and the council is the deciding body of what's gonna be done with that facility. Therefore, if it is